Hey everybody, I received a great question from one of our awesome community members about Warrior Two and the anatomical position of the arms in Warrior Two and the connection between the position of the arms here and opening the chest. So that is what this question was about. I'm first going to read her question because it's such a great question, and then I'll offer my answer. So here's what the exact question was. I'm so confused about the anatomical position of the arms in Warrior Two. Are the arm bones in external rotation in order to help broaden the collarbone / open up the chest? Could you clarify this for me? Please and thank you. My friend and I had a discussion yesterday, and she says they are neutral, but I don't feel that in my body. I tried looking for this information in all my texts, but couldn't find it. Thank you for your help. So isn't that a great question? And yeah, so in the arms here, arms wide, and really this could be in Warrior Two because this is in yoga, this is where we reach the arms out wide, but the lower body doesn't really matter so much to really specifically answer this question. It would be the same if I had the arms here and I was just like in Tadasana, or if I were in Warrior Two. But the question is, what is this anatomical position? And what's the connection between this position and opening the chest or chest opening? So let's first of all say that when we are thinking about opening the chest or like mobilizing or stretching the tissues that live like here at the front of the heart, in muscle language, what we're generally referring to is the pectoralis major, or pec major for short. So pec major like sits here, it's on the chest. We know the pecs, right? They're the ones that people tend to bulk up if they do bench press or push-ups, things like that. So pecs are here, and they are two kind of broad fan-like muscles, one on either side. And their fibers, if you just look at this graphic here, their fibers run relatively horizontally. They tend to run like horizontal, and it's not completely that way. Like the superior fibers, a pec major, are a little more up and down, but just as a whole, we could think of these muscles, their fibers running horizontally. So in order to stretch any muscle, or to lengthen any muscle, we just have to take that muscle and move it in the opposite direction from the direction that it will move if it contracts and shortens. So, all muscles have actions. In order to lengthen or stretch a muscle, we just need to do the opposite of its action. So I'm going to talk about what the anatomical actions of the pec major are, like what this muscle does. But in order to do that, let's first just do a quick review or a quick intro to the basic movements available at the shoulder joint, because the pec acts on the shoulder joint. So it's here on the chest, but then it attaches to the arm bone or the humerus. It attaches to the humerus. So it acts on the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint. So how does the shoulder joint move? Let's talk about 6 directions of motion, and there are a couple more that we'll get to. But the shoulder joint can move into flexion, arms forward and up, and extension, arms down and back. So that's flexion and extension. These are movements you see when you look at the body from the side, and that's the sagittal plane. Then the shoulders can also move in the frontal plane, which is this plane of movement when you look at the body from the front or the back. And this is abduction and adduction. So the shoulders can also we can take the arms out and up, that's abduction, or take the arms down and back in, that is adduction. So that's another pair of movements. And then the shoulder can also rotate. And this is directly connected to this great question we have on our hands. So the shoulders can internally rotate. So the humerus, it will spin in, and they can externally rotate. So the humerus will spin out. So internal rotation, external rotation. So those are kind of like the 6 main directions of movement for the shoulder. So let's get back to pec major and what pec major does, because then that'll tell us what we need to do in order to stretch it. Then we can apply that to Warrior Two. So pec major has a couple of main, or really like three-ish main actions. Number one, since it sits here, its fibers run horizontally and it attaches to the arm bone, the humerus. Your movement eyes might be able to see that if this muscle contracts and shortens, it will pull the arm in like this. So this is internal rotation. So pec major, one of its actions is to internally rotate the shoulder joint. So that's one. And then another action for pec major is to adduct the arm. So brings the arm down and maybe even across midline. The pec major does adduction. So adduction, internal rotation. And then there's another really important movement that pec major also does. And this movement is like a hybrid movement of a couple of other movements. This is called horizontal adduction. Horizontal adduction also pairs with horizontal abduction. So let's just talk about what those are right now. When we horizontally abduct or adduct the arms are first flexed to about 90 degrees. So it starts here, zombie arm style. And then if we take the arms out and back, this is called horizontal abduction. So we take the arms away from each other toward the back. And then horizontal adduction is taking the arms in this plane toward each other. And if you think about what we know about pec major and its fiber orientation and how the fibers run pretty horizontally, maybe we can see that this movement, it's kind of like this movement is built for pec major, or pec major is built for this movement because its fibers run along the horizon and this is movement along the horizon. So horizontal adduction is kind of like the movement where pec major jumps in the most and helps the most is like in this plane. So we said that in order to stretch or like open a muscle, or say we want to open the chest, which is our question here in Warrior 2, if we want to open the chest or mobilize the pec major, we just need to take the arms into like the opposite directions of motion that pec major does. So that means we could stretch pec major by externally rotating the arm bone, and this is where this question comes in, because we know pec major internally rotates, right? So if we externally rotate, that will lengthen pec major. Pec major will also be stretched if we abduct the shoulder. We take it up like this because we know that pec major does adduction. So doing this will stretch it. But since I was explaining that this horizontal adduction is kind of like the biggest main action of pec major, this kind of tells us that really maybe the best stretch, the best way to mobilize the pecs is to move the arms into horizontal abduction. Take them like this because the pecs do this, right? They do this. So if we want to lengthen them, we take the arm out and then back. So that would be a really good and effective way to lengthen pec major. So back to the Warrior 2 question. The first part of the question is, what's the anatomical position of the arms in Warrior 2? So in Warrior 2, the arms are out like this. So the question was, are the arm bones in external rotation? And the answer to that is no, they're not in external rotation, because external rotation is this, rolling the humerus out. But that's not what we do in Warrior 2, at least not in like the classic position or the traditional position. Warrior 2 is simply abduction. It is simply taking the arms straight out into T-arms. So abduction, you can come into abduction and not be in any rotation. So just arms straight out would be neutral rotation. It's not internal or external, it's just shoulder abduction. And that is the basic position of Warrior 2 arms. Then we could layer on variations. We could come into Warrior 2 and we could externally rotate the arms. So that would be like rotating the eye of the elbow up and back, and then the palms rotate up and back. This would be external rotation. We could also internally rotate in Warrior 2. So this is internal rotation combined with abduction, and this would be external rotation combined with abduction. But in Warrior 2, the arms are just on, the simple answer, they are just in abduction. But in this question, she was confused because her friend suggested that the arms were just in neutral rotation in Warrior 2. But she said that's not what she feels in her body. And I don't know this for sure, and this is just kind of an assumption, But I think that the reason that she doesn't feel that the arms are in neutral here, that the arms are in neutral rotation, is because I think she does feel some bit of stretch through the pec major. I think she feels that her chest is opening here. And so in her mind, she thinks, well, then it must be an external rotation. But it's not. So we know that in order to stretch the pecs, we can externally rotate. And I think that is where her line of thinking is coming from. And that's why it's confusing because, like, well, the arms are not an external rotation. But the arms don't, there are other ways that we can move the arms that also stretch the pecs. It's not only external rotation. So since we know that the pec major does adduction, and we know that in Warrior Two, we are in some abduction. We're not in full end range. It's not the arms all the way up, but we're still in roughly 90 degrees of abduction. So this still technically does lengthen the pec major somewhat. It's not a ton, and we're all a little different in what we feel in our body and also our ranges of motion. But some people certainly might feel some sort of stretch in Warrior Two or an opening across the chest just in abduction like this. So my assumption, my line of thinking is maybe that's what she's feeling. She's feeling the stretch from the abduction, but it's not a stretch from external rotation because we're not in external rotation in Warrior Two.